More than a decade before Keith Lamont Scott was killed by police in Charlotte, North Carolina, sparking days of protest there, he had trouble with the law here in San Antonio. A review of court records obtained by the defenders explains why Scott was sent to prison before he moved away from Texas.
He has no weapon. Don't shoot him.
Keith Lamont Scott's wife recorded what would become a deadly encounter with Charlotte police earlier this month. She says he wasn't armed. Police say he was. This booking photo from the Bexar County Jail shows Scott after his arrest for a shooting here. This stretch of South Zarzamora looks much different now than it did back in October 2002 when a San Antonio man said Scott shot him here because Scott believed the man stole his van. A police report from that shooting implies the officer was familiar with Scott. It said, quote, Keith Scott, who lives right here. Scott lived just a few blocks from the shooting scene. 10 shots were fired at the victim, 3 hitting his left hip, 1 hitting his right toe. 1 month before that shooting, police had a different encounter with Scott. He was accused of using a vehicle to get away from police. Scott struck a deal with prosecutors and received a 7-year sentence. His lawyer asked the judge to reduce the sentence, claiming Scott and his family had been the victims of racism and hate crimes, that he was attending college, and he had a job. A judge denied that request. Sometime after his release, Scott wound up in North Carolina. His family says he suffered a traumatic brain injury in an accident. That was 1 year before this.
Keith, get out the car. Keith, don't you do it. Don't you do it. Keith, don't you do it. Did you shoot him? Did you shoot him?
Charlotte police released their video of the shooting at the urging of the Scott family. It shows Scott getting out of his car, walking backwards before police started shooting. However, their cameras were not pointed at Scott when that shooting happened. While police have said he had a gun and released photos of the weapon they say he was carrying, Scott's family insists he was not armed. Authorities are still reviewing the shooting to determine if the officers should face any criminal charges.